Dirt Trax is sponsored by Can-Am. The ride says it all. Polaris, the world leader in off-road innovation. And by Yamaha, conquer outdoors.
It never ceases to amaze me how fast technology is evolving in the side-by-side industry. From engine tech to driver comfort and especially suspension technology, things are evolving so fast it can be hard to keep up. For 2018, Polaris is taking suspension technology to a whole new level with their RZR 1000 Turbo DYNAMIX package. In conjunction with the suspension experts at Fox, Polaris has developed a complete suspension system that rivals what can be found on many supercars. The DYNAMIX package can really be broken down into three major components. First, we have the shocks, which are essentially a standard set of Fox Podium 2.5 RC2s, but instead of having a thumb adjuster for compression, they have an electronic adjuster instead. The control unit, or brain of the system, that has been completely developed and programmed by the engineers at Polaris to monitor the third part of the system. 7 different sensors, including yaw, gyro, throttle position, steering, and more. Using the information gathered by these sensors, the DYNAMIX brain adjusts all 4 shocks independently. Adjusting from full soft to full firm takes only 0.04 of a second. The system is extremely user-friendly and has been designed to be both effective and foolproof. A dash-mounted switch controls the 3 base settings: comfort, sport, and firm. From these 3 baseline settings, the brain adjusts the shocks according to the information it gathers from the sensors. Sensor data and shock settings are displayed in real time on the 7-inch dash-mounted Ride Command display that still includes all the other awesome Ride Command goodies. The questions on everybody's minds are, of course, does it work, and does it make the 2018 RZR, which is essentially the same basic vehicle as the 2017 model, competitive against Can-Am's all-new Maverick X3 Turbo? And the answer to both questions are yes. An engine update that produces 168 horsepower takes care of the performance side of this equation. But the DYNAMIX system does so much more than just adjust shock damping. Because it monitors so many aspects of the vehicle and because it can adjust so fast, it can be used to affect everything from handling to acceleration and braking. For example, when you stab the throttle from a dead stop, the system recognizes aggressive throttle input and stiffens the rear shock to help avoid rear-end squat and therefore improve acceleration. Likewise, when you stab the brakes, the system sees your inputs and stiffens the front shock to avoid front-end dive. When you enter a corner, the system sees your steering input, senses the vehicle turning and weight shifting to one side, and stiffens the outside shocks to resist body roll. If you're braking and turning at the same time, it will strengthen the outside front shock more than the others. The gyro even gives it the smarts to recognize counter steering and not get confused between your steering input and body roll. Furthermore, when you hit a jump and the shocks are fully extended for more than 1 second, the system recognizes that and stiffens all 4 shocks to a maximum of 10 to help resist bottoming when you land. There are so many more cool features of this system, and I can say after an entire day in the desert, pushing this vehicle as hard as I could, the system works better than I could have ever imagined. It completely changes the way the vehicle drives and allows you to drive it harder and faster than ever before. While we were on site with Polaris testing the new DYNAMIX RZR, we were visited by none other than Dax Shepard, who, as everybody knows, is an extremely talented and funny actor. But more importantly, at least for today, he's a huge motorsports nut and RZR enthusiast.
I refer to myself as a brand ambassador for Polaris, although I am under no official capacity as a brand ambassador. I'm just a huge RZR enthusiast. I got the 800s when they came out, and then I switched to the 900s, then I had a 1000, then I got into the turbo, and now I just got into a 4-seater turbo. Graduated all the way to the DYNAMIX version of the 2-seater turbo. The things that are impressive about it, to me, the handling is like, that's incredible. The fact that it's, you know, real-time adjusting to your steering inputs is everything, because then you can ride soft and still have handling, which is nuts. They're progressing so fast and the product's so good. I will not be shocked when someone calls me and says they've done it. They just built a trophy truck for $39,000 and it'll never break. They just seem to be getting closer and closer to Class 1 and trophy truck vehicles that you can buy from like a super dependable company. I mean, I don't know what their plans are, but that would be the ultimate.
With more power, an all-new intelligent suspension package, and the same great RZR handling and ergonomics we've come to know and love. We think Polaris has an extremely competitive vehicle with the 2018 RZR DYNAMIX unit. But there's one more thing about this vehicle that we think is going to make it an even harder vehicle to pass up in 2018. Next season, Polaris has lowered the prices of all their RZR Turbo models. The top-of-the-line DYNAMIX package is only $1,000 more than last season's regular Turbo EPS model. Talk about getting more for your money.
Dirt Trax is sponsored by Princess Auto, a unique world of equipment, tools, and more.
For model year 17, Yamaha has got some big news at the small end of the market. While you might have thought Yamaha was going to introduce a new 700, 800, or 1000cc ATV, they've gone back to the drawing board and reinvented the Kodiak 450. This is not a bold new graphic job on the existing 450 that we had known and loved for many years. This is a complete reinvention. Let's get some details from Yamaha's Travis Hollins.
The cool thing about the Kodiak, we had a great time developing the Kodiak. It's one of those all-purpose machines that really fits a broad spectrum of people, and it's used for a lot of different things. So it's used for a lot of trail riding, but it's also used for a lot of utility work. So really creating that machine that does everything and is comfortable and is nimble and is compact. Those are the things we kept hearing over and over again from the customer. They wanted something that they could literally put a first-time buyer on or somebody with very little experience and feel comfortable and confident that they could ride it and enjoy themselves and have a great time. But also something that the experienced guy that needs it for work or wants to go trail riding with could also have a really good time with. We spent a lot of time on the ideal chassis size, as well as the seating position, the floorboard size, the seat shape, all those things that go into really making the overall package just really good for a broad spectrum of people.
Obviously, the 450 class is a busy place to do business. There is a lot of competitive, really good traffic in the 450 class. Yamaha needed to carve out a really distinct identity. So we asked Travis just exactly what is this 450's identity.
Of course, this 450 class is definitely a price-sensitive class. This is something where either you're a first-time buyer or you're looking for something to add to your ATV stable of vehicles. So price is a very important feature, but so is having the features. So we've got a great price point. We're actually one of the lowest priced vehicles in this category, which is great. But we've also got a lot of great features. Independent suspension, full-size 25-inch tires, the fuel injection with the 421cc motor. We're fully automatic with both high and low range. We've got the push-button on-command system for four-wheel drive. You can get it with the power steering, the third handlebar light, the full-function digital instrumentation on it. So this truly is a full-featured machine that you can get and still meet all of those needs from a price point perspective as well as a full-featured perspective.
When Yamaha reinvented their 450 ATV, they had some pretty big shoes to fill. The former 450 Grizzly was a much-loved ATV. Yamaha had to make sure that they could still attract those customers, as well as a completely new audience to the 450 Kodiak.
The previous Grizzly 450 that we offered a few years back, it was a great machine. Customers loved it. What they really liked about it was that compact size. The engine character was really good. It was carbureted at the time, so obviously fuel injection was a big upgrade for the new Kodiak 450. We also focused a lot on the overall comfort and refined functionality of it. So the engine, you'll notice, is a lot less vibration. We've done that through rubber engine mounts. The overall width is about 3 inches wider, so that gives you a much more comfortable platform when you're out there on the trail. We focused a lot on the suspension settings, the overall seating environment, but it still has that typical Grizzly 450, Kodiak 450, compact, nimble handling and chassis that everybody really loves and appreciates.
Because Yamaha has been out of the 450 segment for a couple of years, it's going to take a little time for 450 buyers to remember that Yamaha is back in, and back in a big way with the 450 Kodiak. Travis will point us in the right direction so that you can find out everything you need to know about the new 450 Kodiak.
If you're looking for more information, obviously you can head down to your local Yamaha dealer, check it out in person. You can really tell how compact it is and how nimble feeling it is, how smooth and quiet the engine is, low vibration, all those things that are so great about it. You can go to our website at yamahamotorsports.com, find out all the information, all the specifications, watch the videos, and really get a sense or a feel for it. But I can tell you, if you try it, you'll love it.
Dirt Trax is sponsored by MBRP Power Sports, race-inspired performance.
Welcome back to the Trail Tech Shop. This week I have a lot of parts to install on the Project Mud Racer, so without too much time wasted, let's get into it and start installing them. With the beefed up Mud & Wheels Torque Series rear diff installed and linked up to our Rubberdown Customs diff brace kit, we've got serious strength out back. Adding to this are my brand new Track Motive HD axles on all 4 corners, making the driveline strong enough to accept all that Mr. RPM power we're going to be sending to the wheels. And if you remember, I left off the front upper A-arms. Why, you might ask? And the answer is pretty simple. No, it's not so that you can see what I'm doing better. It's so that I can take all of the front suspension componentry off and replace it with high clearance arms from SuperATV. Finding Gen 1 high clearance arms can be a real struggle. Everyone's on to Gen 2s, but SuperATV still makes this tried and true setup. While it won't fit max models, it works with everything else, and man does it make a big difference. It's made from 25% larger diameter tube at 1.25 inch thickness. They're beefy, strong, and they come as a full set of 4. I've also opted for the SuperATV bushing kit as it's a good idea to start with new at this point, especially seeing as ours look to be the originals and the kit is so inexpensive to buy. On top of being really strong and adding more clearance underneath the bike, these high clearance arms will actually allow you to run up to a 30-inch tire with nothing more than just doing the arms on a stock bike. That means no lift at all, and that's how we're going to run this rig. Yes, we have big rubber to go on, but as a race bike, we want to keep it as low of a center of gravity as possible while still keeping good ground clearance. These arms do all of that. The adjustable pivot block also means you can fine-tune the tire angle to keep your wheels aligned. Oh, they also take your stock ball joints if they aren't beat, which mine were, so I ordered a set of factory replacements to tighten up the front end. In the way of suspension, I wanted to change out the 8,000-mile stockers because they were completely beat. Now, keeping in mind that I'm building a 2008 Gen 1 and not a 2017 Gen 2, I wanted to use shocks that would give me all the performance that I'm looking for and none of the extras I don't need. I called Elka to find out what they recommended. I suggested using Stage 1s all the way around, but I'm glad I spoke with them as their sponsored mud racers like using Stage 2s in the rear and Stage 1 up front. These are hand-built and shock dyno tested to verify they're built properly. And surprisingly, they are very reasonably priced, coming in cheaper than what you'd probably pay for a new stock shock setup from the dealership. Both feature dual rate springs for my riding weight, and the Stage 2s add in a rebound clicker so we can fine-tune the speed at which the rear shocks return to full extension. Something I'm told is important when mud racing. And should we ever put on some less aggressive tires and go for a weekend's rip on the trails? Well, these are going to deliver excellent on-trail ride quality. Now, something I know you're all going to like, and I think is going to completely change the way that this buggy looks, is wheels and tires. Sure, we could race just about anything, even the stockers would be fine for having fun, but we're looking for ultimate performance, and after talking with the pros, I think I found the right combination. Seeking the ultimate skinny profile with a maximum lug depth, I went for the SuperATV Assassinator. With a 3-inch lug, you're talking about the gnarliest and most aggressive mud tire out there. And at only 8 inches wide all around, we're going to cut through the mud with ease and shed the excess thanks to a self-cleaning design that won't cake up or get full. So let's throw them on a 7.5 or 8-inch wide rim and be done with it, right? Nah, I can't do that. And Rubberdown Customs helped me out with a set of their beautiful 14-inch Swamp-Lox rims. With powder-coated to match bead locks, these are some seriously aggressive rims. 3-piece in design and incorporating a built-in air valve on the rim, the Swamp-Lox 14-inch crush locks are impressive. They come with all the hardware to start your crush and complete it, right down to the valve stem and aluminum covers. This set is Rubberdown's aluminum 14-inch version, but you can get a 12-inch aluminum or both 12 and 14-inch steel versions at a lower cost. To keep rotating mass lower, we opted for 14-inch and all aluminum. It's a bit of an interesting process having never done this before, but it's straightforward as you work around the rim to lock the bead to the center aluminum disc. Once I got the hang of it, well, it still took a little while, but the finished product is insanely aggressive. I've never run crush locks before, and I didn't really even understand how they were designed, but now I know them, I understand it, and I think this is going to be a winning setup. Installation makes me realize just how much narrower this bike is going to be. Possibly in the future we'll add a spacer, but for now we'll run it as is. The 29.5s are really tall once we crush them out, and unlike a conventional tire and rim combo, when you add air it really doesn't do a whole lot. After dropping the build back to the ground after what seems like an eternity up in the air, I'm pretty pleased with it. The Project Mud Racer is looking crazy aggressive, and it makes me want to jump on board and go for a rip right now. but I got a few pieces that I'm waiting to arrive that I think are really gonna set this thing off, so the build will continue.
Closed captioning of Dirt Trax is sponsored by Triton Trailer, built for adventure.
As a person who spends a lot of time driving and testing sport side-by-sides, I often surprise myself with how excited I get when the time comes to test a utility unit. Kawasaki's MULE Pro-FXT EPS LE is a prime example of how an honestly pretty unexciting vehicle by pure sport standards has me excited nonetheless. Believe me, I'm as curious to find out why as you are. The first thing about the MULE FXT I noticed when I climbed behind the wheel was just how big it feels. Compared to a Ranger Crew or even a Defender Max, this thing feels big. Dimensionally, its outer measurements aren't any bigger though. In fact, its length is quite a bit shorter, but it feels big, and sometimes that feels good. It also seems to be extremely well built. Sturdy is the word that comes to mind. Everything about this vehicle seems to be designed and built to handle anything you can throw at it. From its front and rear protective brush bars to its solid half doors, it's just a tough machine. And I like that in a utility side-by-side. I want something I can depend on. Furthermore, it feels like it was intelligently designed and appointed. Little things like the door latches, they're easy to use and they work. Or this center-mounted grab handle for the front passenger, something no other utility side-by-side has. These might seem like little things, but when you're climbing in and out of a side-by-side all day long, little things can become big things real fast. The shifter is buttery smooth, though I did find you can't rush it when shifting. Taking your time to move between drive modes results in smooth and positive shift results. The dash is a little on the utilitarian side, but doesn't look out of place, and the only complaint with the interior layout is that the switches on the dash are a long reach for the driver. I like the tilt steering, though I have to say once I set it, I never did adjust it. On a vehicle like this, I also like having a parking brake versus a parking setting in the transmission. It allows me to park on a hill without that cringe-inducing clunk when you pull another style transmission from park into drive. The T in our FXT LE model refers to it having Kawasaki's trans cab, which means the back seat can be transformed to increase the bed size considerably. 2 bench seats hold 3 people each and really are roomy enough for 3 adults. The bench seats may look uncomfortable, but for utility purposes or mild trail riding, they're actually surprisingly comfortable. There's also tons of space in the back seat, so even big guys don't feel cramped. The bed of the FXT is pretty small when you're in 6-seat mode. This is one of the trade-offs you have to accept if you want a shorter wheelbase than a vehicle like a Ranger Crew that seats 6 and has a full-size bed. When converted though, the bed is huge. In our opinion, this trade-off is entirely worth it unless you absolutely must carry 6 people all the time. With that said, converting the bed requires a college degree the first time you do it, and we think having to unlatch the roof bungees so the back bed can tilt is pretty wonky. There's gotta be a slicker way to do this. All in all, the utility aspects of the Mule are spot on, and things only get better when you move to the more technical bits underneath. The MULE FXT is powered by a 3-cylinder 812cc electronically fuel-injected engine built by Chery. If you're thinking, where have I seen this engine before? The answer is in one of Dirt Trax TV's favorite utility side-by-sides of all time, the Gator 825i. It's the same engine, and we love it just as much here as we do there. Top speed is an admirable 46 miles per hour, but don't expect to win any drag races. It takes a while to get there. This isn't what the Mule's all about though, so it's not a negative. Power delivery is just so smooth, and low-end power feels bottomless. We definitely like the sound of this 3-cylinder engine, but in this vehicle it's extremely quiet, which is nice because it means you can talk to the passengers in the cab without having to yell. Suspension-wise, the Mule is so much more than its specifications would suggest. AA arms produce 8.7 inches of travel front and rear, and you've got 10 inches of ground clearance to work with. The shocks are only preload adjustable. Realistically, these specs are nothing special. But on the trail, the suspension is so plush, and it feels like there's way more travel than there actually is. The same goes for ground clearance. It feels like there's way more than 10 inches. Overall, the ride of the MULE FXT Pro is fantastic. Our FXT EPS LE obviously includes single-mode EPS that works excellent. It also includes extras like a full roof, aluminum wheels, and additional lighting. All Mule models include high and low range, shiftable 4x4 with locking front diff and unlocking rear. Our unit has an accessory windshield, front bumper, and winch to top things off. Interior storage is one area the Mule is unnecessarily lacking. A center cubby and this glove box is all you really have to work with. But I say unnecessarily because if you lift up the front seat, the space is cavernous and offers huge storage potential. A hinged front seat and basic bin-style containers underneath should be standard equipment instead of an accessory, especially on the LE model. It just makes a world of sense. Why do I like the MULE Pro-FXT EPS LE? Because it does exactly what I expected it to do, and it does it well. There are very few things about this vehicle that drive me crazy or make me question the sanity of its designers. It simply works. And when it comes to a utility side-by-side, there really is nothing more important than that.
Dirt Trax Television has been sponsored by Polaris, the world leader in off-road innovation, Can-Am, the ride says it all, and by Textron Off-Road, driven by the bold.
This segment is just the start for you. Click the subscribe button and become part of the Dirt Trax Nation, where you'll have access to tons of great content from all of the years past of our great stories, trail techs, and test rides.